Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vet Chats, where we help veterans share their awesome stories and make the veteran community a better place. I hope you'll stay tuned to hear how the new generation is continuing their service. Also, Vet Chats is now available on Reach Across America Radio. We will be played Mondays at 9 p.m. and Saturdays at 3 p.m. They have a ton of great veteran content that I know you'll appreciate. You can find them at their website, on the iHeartRadio, or the Odyssey app. Guys, if you can hear me, could you give me a thumbs up? Because I just spoke with Barbara. We're going to try this again. Okay, I see your request. I'm just going to go ahead and the live. Thumbs up. All right. Okay. Okay. All right, Barbara, I'm accepting you. Oh, okay, it's loading.
Yeah, there it
There we go.
is.
Hey. How are you
Got
doing?
it. Hey. I'm good. I'm in my van in
I
the
love
parking
it.
lot in
That's
Nashville.
the true Barbara Sim spirit. That's awesome. How was your weekend? I know you had a lot going on.
It was amazing. Yeah, I had a show Friday night and then I was in the studio Saturday and then I had a show Saturday night and then
Oh
I was in
my
the
goodness.
studio again
How
today.
how vocally do you do that? Because that's strenuous. Do you have to
Well, can you hear the
I hear it,
raspiness
but
in
it
my voice
sounds
a little
good.
bit?
It's like a good raspy.
Uh, yeah. I it was good today though. So I had a really good time. It was a new studio, it was a new producer, and I've done a bunch of different like studios in Nashville and they've all been great, but it's always kind of finding that like relationship and that vibe where you really like
Right.
get each other. And I feel like we really got each other today and
Right.
it felt so
I
good.
can imagine that
So I'm
because you
excited.
have your own sort of vision and your personal attachment to your music. And when you're working with someone that may have
Yeah.
different ideas of you, yeah. Oh, that is so cool. And is this one of the first
Yeah.
times that's happened where you're like, we get each other?
Yes. Yes. And it was like he was like, "Can you do this?" And I would do it. And he was like, "Yeah." And he was like so pumped up and I don't know, it was really
Yeah,
cool. I
yeah.
had a lot of fun. And I've been in studios before, but it was always like, I don't know, I want to do like a more like bluesy, gritty sound. And sometimes I feel like people look at me and they're like, "Oh, she's sweet." And so they try to make it sweet and like kind of more classic country, which I love
Oh,
classic country. So
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm talking too much right now, but I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
yeah, I could see
the
that. And
studio
people
day.
want to put you in a box of, what you've done previously, or maybe when you were younger, and then you're like, no, I want to do this
Yeah.
more. So, yeah, I could see that.
Or they have this sound and it's not bad, like it works,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just not you. And so finding somebody that gets you
Yes,
is
yeah,
really rare. Life and in music and in relationships, I guess that could go
all
for
kinds
all
of
kinds of
things.
things.
Yes, yeah, it definitely could, even with your parents. We go on and on. But Barbara,
Oh Lord,
when
bring
they
up the
don't
parents.
understand you,
My mama gets
hey,
me,
that's all
so
that
that
matters. But anyhow, let's get
yeah.
into it. I know a lot of your audience.
Scotty, let
I
out the
know a lot of
beast.
your audience knows you, but a lot of my audience is like, "Who's Barbara? She's in a band. This is awesome." So let's go back to where this all started. And where are you originally from?
Oh Lord, that's even complicated. I grew up all different places. I was born in Wisconsin. I lived in Scotland for a little bit, and most of my family's in Scotland, like everybody on my dad's side and some of my mom's side. And then I lived in Oklahoma and Texas for a little bit and Florida for a little bit. And then I grew up for a big chunk in South Carolina, and that's where this
Okay,
accent comes from.
okay, I can hear that.
So, yeah. So I spent a lot, I graduated like from like fourth grade to graduation. I
Right.
was in South Carolina, like
Okay,
right outside Myrtle
gotcha. And that
Beach.
must have been
And it was like we never really felt like we belonged. We were always kind of like silly outsiders, even growing up, because our families weren't from there. Like we didn't have land there. Like everybody was like, "Who's your daddy?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
right. I feel like that really is a Southern thing though, because people are always like,
it is like your family,
Oh.
and that's not a bad thing, but it hurts or it makes it difficult when
Right.
you don't have
Right,
that
exactly. Yeah, people
root.
will always ask me what's my last name, and I'm like, I'm not from here. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like, what's your last name? What does that
Yeah.
have to do with anything? Like, I'm like, Sin, and they never say it right. They always like, they say Sin. I'm like, no, my last
No,
name's not
no. Yeah,
Sin.
especially in Southern culture, that's like.
Yeah. I'm like, oh no, her last name is Sin.
Right,
Stay away from
right.
her.
Yeah, so growing up all over, I mean, you got a lot of different backgrounds there as well. So what made you decide to join the Marines?
I'm sorry, this is being crazy. So it's funny. I actually joined the Marines by accident.
What?
I know, right? I should have a cool story like, ooh, rah, I wanted to be a Marine forever. No, I never even wanted to join the military until I was sitting in history class and the Twin
Mhm.
Towers fell. And and I wrote a song about it. It's called She Served. But when I saw that, it kind of like ignited a little bit of that patriotic spirit in me. And I didn't know how I wanted to do it. And my older sister joined the National Guard. And so I followed her and I did National Guard. I did split op. So I went to boot camp the summer between my junior and senior year. And it's so funny because I went to cheerleading camp and then I went to boot camp. And so I was in boot camp practicing my cheerleading dances and I got like, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
getting a lot of shit and I had to like, yeah. So it was ridiculous. But then I did my senior year and I got injured and I didn't make my AIT date. And so you have to be, they told me you had to be fully trained within a year of boot camp. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
true or not, or if they were just giving me shit, but they said, come back in a year. They said, come back in a year and you can try again. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back to the army. They kicked me out. And so I did, one of my friends told me about this job down in Florida that I could do. I used to want to be a magazine editor. I wanted to be in journalism and public relations and all that. And I went down to Florida and it ended up being a scam. And it was
Right.
door to door
Oh
sale
no.
magazines. And I'd already graduated high school, and they were like, "Yeah, just pretend you're a high school senior. Go door to door, sell these magazines. Tell them you're raising money for a senior cruise." None of that was true. It was a scam, and they never got their magazines, and I never got my money. It was it was so horrible. And then to top it off, I ended up getting abducted at a hotel um, in Florida for 2 days. And so that's kind of was like my first
Yeah.
like really traumatic event. And I remember thinking like, fuck this. Like I want to be in the military. Like I don't like this
Hmm.
life. I need to get out of this. And so I went back to Miami. What ended up happening, it was a crazy story. I was in the hotel room and my boss was real shady and he'd been drunk, harassing me, pushing me up against walls for a long time, like trying to whatever. And I'd made friends with one of these guys that was in there with us. I say in there because that was like,
Yeah.
it was this thing. And he ended up telling everybody to leave the hotel room and he pushed me down the bed. I escaped him and I ran into the bathroom and my friend ended up calling the police. And I did not leave that bathroom until the police officer knocked on that door. And he let me out of the door. He let me out of the bathroom and I told him what happened and he bought me a bus ticket home. And that's how I got out of that situation. And I wish I could remember his name. Like I tell everybody, I was like, if he's out there and he remembers this story, he remembers my face or whatever. I look a little
Yeah.
different from like 20 years ago, but he saved me and he sent me home on a bus ticket. And I never told anybody what happened. Like my mom, family, nothing. I was like, I'm not telling anybody. And I don't know why. I
Right.
think it was just,
Absolutely.
that shame factor. Like,
Hmm.
what did I do wrong to cause this kind of bullshit? And so I ended up joining the Marine Corps. But I joined the Marine Corps by accident. Long story short, I was going to be, I went to go join the Air Force. I wanted to be an airspace physiologist. I wanted to work for NASA because my
Oh
uncle at the time worked for NASA, and I love the stars. I had a
yeah.
telescope growing up. My biggest shame is when I was 11 years old and my mama asked me, "Do you want a guitar or a telescope for Christmas?" And I said telescope. I should, and I like 2 days after I got it, I took it
Right.
apart because I wanted to see how it worked. And I tried to put it together, and it never worked
Oh
right again.
man, that's funny.
So I should have just
Right,
said guitar.
right, because that's, well, you ended up where you were supposed to be anyhow with the guitar, so.
It happened
Hmm.
eventually in God's timing, I guess. Or, God's just sitting there like, I gave you this opportunity and you
Right,
were the
right.
telescope.
You gotta say
Look at
yes.
Scotty. Yeah. So anyway, I went to the Air Force office. I was going to join the Air Force, and they weren't taking prior service. And because I'd been Army National Guard, they wouldn't take me. And as I was walking out of the Air Force office, I'm in Florida. I'm like in Miami, Florida. And the guy was smoking a cigarette, this Marine, and he was like, "You joined the Air Force?" And I was like, "No, they won't take me." He was like, "Well, we'll take you." And I swear, at the time, I thought all Marines were infantry. Like in my mind, Marine Corps was just all infantry. I don't know why, but I was like, "You sure?" And I was like, I was down. I was like, "All right, if you'll take me, I'll go." And so I went in there and he showed me all these different jobs I could do. And my first job I wanted to do was Intel. And I had the scores, like the GT scores and everything. I could do it. Intel, public relations, and then logistics was my third choice. And they said, recruiters out there, join in. They said that the Intel and the public
Of
relations were
course, they
taken.
were
And so I
taken.
couldn't do that. And, yeah, they said there was no more female slots. That's their exact wording. And so I had to go logistics, which I'm not mad about. My only stipulation I told them was that I didn't want to sit at a desk all day and that I wanted to make a difference. And so they put me in logistics and I ended up really
Right.
liking the job.
Yeah. I mean, where did you end up getting stationed first? Or actually, how was boot camp for you? Because I feel like you have a story there. Yeah.
So I did boot camp twice, right? I did Army boot camp and Corps boot camp. And I feel like Army boot camp was harder physically because up to that
Right.
point, I'd just been a cheerleader in high school. I didn't know about, physical toughness or pushing yourself past your limits. And so when I went through Army boot camp, I really learned how to push myself. And then when I went through Marine Corps boot camp, it was more of a mental game. Like they really fuck with
Yeah,
you.
you're
I don't know if I
good.
can say that on here, but they they really mess with you. Wow. Look at
Y'all
Scotty.
heard
He's
it here.
giving Marines
Marines are
shit.
not all infantry.
We're all riflemen, but we're
Right,
not
there's a
all
difference.
infantry. Yeah. But I still have the pizza box. Do you want to know why I have a pizza box? It's
Yeah,
for your
the
rifle
little
claws.
thing.
So I yeah, so I had the worst luck. I'm infantry or not infantry. I'm logistics. So I think I was only on the range like twice in my life. And I every time, like three times that I went to the range, when I got to the 500-yard range, I forgot to flip my scope, not my scope, my iron sight. So when you go to the 500-yard range, you have to flip the sight. And so I was looking through the little sight, not the big sight. And so I would be doing great until I got to the 500-yard line, and then I just missed every shot. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then I realized too late that my dumb ass forgot to
Right,
flip
right.
the sight. So those dark iron sights,
Hey,
I'm
I
just,
mean that's better than some. I mean, some don't even have that. Right? Right, that's like the second one you
I'm just,
can get because the first one is just the ribbon.
no, I
Was
thought the
it?
pizza
Okay,
box was the
maybe I
worst.
know Navy's different. I'm trying to remember what it is for me.
No,
That's
I
the
think for the
basic
Marine
one.
Corps,
Hey,
is
I
the worst.
mean, we could always,
Yeah.
yeah.
Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah,
I
I
thought that
can't
was the worst
remember.
that you could get.
But anyhow,
Uh,
how was the rest of boot camp and the other training for you?
So, I mean, I love boot camp. I used to be super fit and I loved working out and I loved, I'm kind of person I like to be told what to do. Nobody take that the wrong way. But I, I do. I love getting directions and I follow directions well. And I loved like you know, you knew what you had to do. And, the military, they give you the road maps. So you start here and you got to do this in order
Mm-hmm.
to get to the next level kind of thing. And I really did well with that. And, I was stationed, well, I did boot camp at Paris Island, obviously, because I was in '05. I guess
Oh,
you can do
okay.
it anywhere now. Yeah, it's like co-ed
Okay,
now,
even on the other coast, what
but
is
it was.
it?
Yeah, the
Because I
in
know only didn't
holy
only
shit.
girls go to
Yeah,
Paris Island for a while. Yeah.
yeah, Fourth Battalion. Yeah, they just closed Fourth Battalion like
Oh wow.
this year, I think. I know, but I was Fourth Battalion, um, Oscar Company,
You'll
Platoon
never forget that,
4027.
right?
I got it on a T-shirt. But yeah, and then I went to MCT, which is Marine Combat Training, and where I actually broke my feet because I was like a buck 25 back then, and I was carrying a 100-pound pack. And this is where the debates about women roles in the
Hmm.
military kind of come into play, which I'm still so undecided about because I feel like if you can do
Right.
it, you should have a chance to do it. Um, but we also have different biology. We have different strengths and we have different weaknesses, just like men have
Hmm.
different strengths and weaknesses. Um, but I broke my feet
Twice?
twice.
Oh,
And
that's not an easy
yeah,
injury either.
and no, it took a little bit to heal. But I ended up finally healing, and all I had to do to finish was do my final hike. And I finally ended up doing my final hike. And my gunny from the broke platoon, she ended up doing my final hike with me and like kind of cheering me on the whole way. And I wish I could remember her name. She was awesome. But she did the hike with me, and I finished, and I got sent out to the fleet, and I went to Okinawa, Japan, which it's really funny because one of my friends from boot camp,
Hmm.
we wanted to go to Hawaii, so we put it overseas, and she got Hawaii, and I got Japan, which I'm not mad about. Like I really
Right,
like
right. And
Japan.
so you're young at the time and you're getting sent out to Japan. What was that like when you arrived there? Was it kind of a culture shock or?
Yeah, but my first time out of the country, and I think it was
Oh
actually my
my
first time on an
goodness.
airplane.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I got to Japan and I'm checking into my unit at Camp Foster. And my first sergeant was like, "Are you ready to deploy to Iraq?" And I'm like, I mean, I just got here, but
Yeah.
sure, I don't really have a choice. Which is extra funny because when I was enlisting, my recruiter was like, "Oh no,
Right,
you'll never
right.
deploy. You're
Don't
fine."
worry about that. We don't do that anymore.
I called my recruiter from Iraq and was like, "Guess where I am?" And he acted all happy. He was like, "Oh, that's
Yes.
amazing." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
thanks.
great."
Thanks for your promise. Right?
Oh, it was funny. He had no clue. He was like clueless, whatever. It was funny. Which I ended up, my time in Iraq was probably my favorite time in the Marine Corps, not because it was wonderful, but because I felt like I was actually
Right.
doing what I was trained to do. So like we did our training in Mount Fuji, and then we went to Iraq and we worked on Al Assad. I was logistics, so I loaded and unloaded aircraft. So I was on the flight line at Al Assad. So if you flew through Iraq and Al Assad between August of '06 and March of '07, you might
Oh.
have seen me. I'm probably the one doing this. You can't. It's not working because I'm
Right,
only
right.
partway in the
Right.
camera, but
You're doing like
you
the
know what I'm
landing
doing, right?
signals. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did that, and then I volunteered for Lioness while I was there, which the Lioness Task Force is the female engagement team that searches females and children. And because women weren't allowed in combat roles at the time, you had to volunteer for it. And I remember I was one of two females in my unit. The other female was Jennifer Parcell. And I was kind of nervous about doing it because I didn't really plan on doing anything like that.
Hmm.
Like I'm on the flight line. And I remember her telling me, like, she was very motivating. She was just a really cool girl. And um, we didn't we didn't get along when I first got there. It was like I was on her
Yep.
turf and we kind of butt heads for a little bit, and but we worked it out. She ended up teaching me yoga, and we would go to like the platoon. Um, they had like this cardio class that somebody held, and we would be in the back row, and our staff sergeant was in the front row. This like short, stocky, like um, guy that like was serious all the time, but he's up there doing the cardio classes and jumping around in his silkies. And so me and her in the back, like just laughing, like we can't even do the exercises because we're laughing so hard. But anyway, we ended up connecting in Iraq, and she talked me into doing the Lioness, and I'm so glad she did. And I went out there, and I got to search females, and the most important part to me was being able to talk to
Yeah.
the female Iraqis, because we had an interpreter with us, which was crazy because our interpreter was this 15-year-old guy, this kid that his entire family had been killed by the Taliban. And so he's working with the Iraqi army and through us. And I was out there with the 2-3 Marines in Haklania. And we were at the Lioness Den. And so it's just like a bunch of Heskos. And we would be at the TCP, and the women would come through, and I'd get to talk to them. Like, how do you feel about us being here? What do you want out of us being here? Like, what are your goals and dreams? And all these kind of conversations I got to talk to these women about. And it just kind of like built this fire inside of me about these women that have, they live in these countries that have, you know, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, like, they don't have any
Right.
opportunity or choice as women. And even after I got back from Iraq, it was just, I dug a little bit deeper into it about countries that, like, if you get raped in certain countries in Africa, like, you're shunned from your tribe. Like, nothing to do with that, but you will be shunned for that. Like, you're dirty, you're worthless. And it was just heartbreaking. And it's like, what can we do about this? And I'm still struggling to find ways to help in that way. And if anybody knows, like, some kind of organization or something that helps in that way, like, I want to be a part of that. I've started to connect with a few organizations, like Operation Lightshine here in Nashville. They their whole mission is to combat child trafficking and exploitation, which I think is
Right.
a huge thing.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I was abducted like days, and it was traumatic for me, so I can't imagine what people go through, like, in that kind of scenario. So it's just something that's important to me, and I feel like it's a big deal in this. Unfortunately, it's like a big dark it's like a secret underworld, but it's also
It
not
is.
secret.
I
And
was
it's
just in Vegas, and every time you went to the bathroom, you'd close the stall, and it would be like, "Are you being trafficked? Here's a number." You know, it was just everywhere, and it just puts into your reality like what goes on, and it's horrible.
yeah, I can't believe how prominent just sex
Mm-hmm.
trafficking in general is. Heartbreaking. I just met a friend up in Alaska this summer that was trafficked overseas for 2 years after her husband was killed in a foreign country as a military. And like, I don't want to give, she's writing a book about it, but she was let down by the US government and, like, left over there after her husband was killed in action. And she ended up being trafficked and had to find her way out of it. And then when she finally made it back to the States, finally she was given the support and stuff that she needed, but it took a really long time to get there and a lot of shit that she
And
had to go through.
like, imagine trying to get out of there. That seems like,
Yeah. And just feeling completely,
yeah.
like, abandoned and losing
Please
your
send me
husband,
that
like,
book,
on top of
or
that.
this person. I'd love to read that.
I mean, help point. We had a head on a swivel. Yeah. It's sad. Oh my God, I can't
No.
even imagine with kids. And I feel bad because I drive a big white van, and I can tell when I'm driving through, like, parking lots and stuff, with people, they, like, pull their kids closer. And when I parked outside my sister's house, her neighbors called the cops because there was a suspicious van parked in the community. And I was like, oh, it's just me, guys. And then I was recently in out in Memphis, and I was in a little community just outside Memphis, and I was shopping at a couple boutiques, and this lady came out of her shop, and she was like, "Is that one of those spy vans?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What's that big antenna on top?" And I was like, "That's my
Oh
cell
my
phone booster."
goodness. Right, and I know that van life has gotten more popular. But I mean, still, people are like, they're gonna be suspicious. We see the movie.
It's
Yeah,
still a big
yeah,
white
they get a
van that
bad
nobody
rap.
knows. Yeah.
But anyhow, so eventually you got out of the Marines, and why did you want to get out, and what was your transition like?
So I did not want to get out of the Marine Corps. I got married to a Marine while I was in. I met him out in Okinawa, and, we thought we were in love. And he wanted to get out, so I got out for him. And then we ended up getting divorced. I got out in June of 2009, And then he was supposed to get out in October of 2009. And in September, I had a home invasion, robbery, and assault. And it was kind of like a catalyst to our divorce. Um, he was like, this doesn't happen to normal people. It was just, we were young. It was a lot to deal with on any scenarios. I'm not going to trash talk him. He's not a bad guy. I mean, we all
Right.
both could have handled things better. Um, but it broke us. And I got out for him. And then that ended up happening. And then he got out and we moved out to Texas to be with his family. And about 3 months later, we tried to make it work. And then 3 days after Christmas, he asked me for a divorce. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because after everything I'd been through, I already felt broken and worthless. And the person that I thought I could rely on to love me and keep me through it, he just kind of tossed me to the curb. That's what it felt like. And it broke me. And a week later, I moved out to Florida. Actually, his mom drove the U-Haul. I love his mom. I miss his mom more than I miss him. But she drove the U-Haul. We stayed in a hotel together. We talked about life, and she gave me some encouraging words. And I got down to Florida, where my sister was stationed in the Coast Guard, and I stayed there for about a year. But I don't remember any of that year because I drank my year away. I remember when I got to Fort Lauderdale, I was staying in not a hotel. I was staying in an apartment, and I had a bed, a cardboard box with a TV on it, and an office chair, just in this small apartment. And I had nothing. And I had my dog. My dog kept me alive. And that's where my God moment came in. I talk about my God moment when I talk about my testimony, which didn't register for a long time because I didn't really reconnect with my faith till 2017, 7 years later. But there was always a dance between me and it and God. Between there, he was always reaching out to me. But at that time, I remember sitting in my apartment, and I was sitting on my bed, and I remember, I don't know if you've ever cried so hard you feel like you're just gonna like fall apart into a million pieces, and everything's shaking, and you just feel like you might burst. And my dog's sitting there with me, and all of a sudden, and I'm gonna sound crazy, all of a sudden the whole room went completely still. Like the air in the room, everything went completely still, and I felt this warm hand on my face, and my whole body just went completely still. And I felt so calm and at peace. And I knew that God was telling me that I wasn't alone and that I was going to be okay. It didn't last very long, but it lasted long enough to save me. And so that was 2010. And then the next year, I kind of searched around for some church groups. And the next year, I found a church group in Fort Lauderdale. And I ended up getting saved on Father's Day in 2011, baptized. And then I still struggled for years and years. I wasn't in a good state, drinking and just trying to find my way. I went to college. I failed out of college like 2 or 3 times. I would just be sitting in class and I would start shaking and crying, and I couldn't tell anybody why. It was just this buildup of just raw trauma. So I really struggled to and it's like I could do the work. I would hand in my assignments, and it would be A's and B's, but my attendance wasn't there. And so I'd failed out for attendance, just because I couldn't handle being in the room. And then I tried online school, but even just logging in, like I would lay in bed, and it was just this really, really deep, deep, deep depression. And I ended up hiking the Appalachian Trail. I was searching. I was always searching for something. Like you got to keep, like, you find all these different things. You do all these different retreats and events and like all these things that they put out there for veterans, and some things just don't work until you find something that does. And so you just got to keep trying everything. And that's why I kept trying everything. And I ended up doing this Appalachian hike trail, and I found healing through nature. And while I was out there, I carried a Martin backpacker with me, because I've always loved singing. Singing has always been a part of me. It's always been my stress reliever. Even when I was stationed in Okinawa, like I would sing karaoke. It's how I got everything out. But drunken karaoke is not healthy. Fun, and so I ended up finding creative. It is fun. I would say
Right,
when I'm in a
right.
healthy state of mind, it's fun.
Yeah,
When I'm not, it's
absolutely.
not healthy. So yeah, I ended up finding creative vets out in Nashville. I was just online Googling like music and veterans. And I went out to Nashville in January or February of 2016. And I did the program there and we wrote a song together. And I was like, this is something I can redirect this passion into a healthy outlet. And so that's why I started trying to like write songs. And I was like, I need to learn how to play guitar. Like, I need to do this. Like, this is something that can save me. And I knew, like, I just knew that's what I needed to do. And when I was hiking the Appalachian Trail, I brought a Martin backpacker with me and I learned how to play the guitar while I hiked. And I wrote some of my first songs out there. They're not good, but
Yeah.
they were necessary for what I was trying to
So you
get
just
out of
taught
me.
yourself while you were out there?
Yeah,
Okay, got oh,
me and
okay, gotcha.
YouTube.
I was just like, was nature like calling you? Do this, try.
No, and there was people along the
Oh,
trail that like were musical
cool.
that, would give me tips here and there. And it was a really cool experience. There was, I was still struggling. Like, I wasn't in a good place. I was drinking too much. That's the thing about the Appalachian Trail, is that it's a very
Mhm.
social trail. And so I feel like I could have done better with just like a more nature trail. But this one, you're always in towns and there's always that enticement of alcohol. And the social aspect was always hard for me. And so I leaned into that
Mhm.
alcohol to cope with the social part of it, and it didn't always end well for me. So that was just something I was working through at the time. And I still, I mean, I've been drinking tonight,
I
but
had a few watching football earlier.
I did really I did really well. Yeah, we were watching the game earlier. I did really well all weekend because I was in the studio and I didn't want to be hungover.
Right.
Or, I wanted to be, hydrated and present for my studio. But then I came out tonight with my friends and we had some beers and watched the game. And they got me onto DraftKings, and
Oh
they got me betting on
no. Yeah,
DraftKings.
yeah, that's the new thing
I know.
everywhere. It's crazy
Yeah,
how much you can bet now on anything.
it is. Yeah. So yeah, and I hiked the Appalachian Trail and I learned how to play guitar. And then when I got back, I was in South Carolina and I went to a couple open mics. And I remember the first open mic I went to, I was so nervous that I took 2 shots of whiskey, went and threw up in the bathroom,
You
and
were
then went on
so
stage.
nervous.
I was so nervous, but then I played 3 songs and I did it, and I was so proud of myself and everybody clapped. And I felt that high. Like, I felt like this is where I need to be. This is what's going to help me. Like,
Yeah.
this feels good. It was
Mm-hmm.
my
It's
happy
what you
place,
were meant for.
I I need
Yeah.
more of this. It was the end. It was that connection. Like, when I left South Carolina, I moved out to Colorado um, in 2017, and I started gigging full time. Like, I learned guitar in 2016. I started gigging in 2017, and I mean, my first gigs, the Burns Pub in Broomfield, Colorado, gave me my first gig out there in Colorado, and they kind of became my home place. So I played there like all the time, like every month, and they were so supportive. The owner, Chris, and his family and everybody, they were so supportive, and they always wanted you back. And they were like, hey, learn this song and learn this song, and they were like pushing me to do better and be better. And they just loved me. And so it really was a confidence booster, and it helped me like keep going. And it was a really cool place I feel very lucky to have that place to start off, and have that kind of home space to learn and
Right.
grow. But yeah, that was 2017. And I was in Colorado for 4 years just trying to do the music scene. And I wanted to do more, like I wanted to grow, but I didn't know how. Yeah, I'm gonna take a
No,
drink
you're
real quick
good. You
because
gotta preserve the voice. Absolutely.
who's asking me if I still have the hummingbird, Michael? I do. Like, that's all I play is the Gibson hummingbird. I will tell you the story of the Gibson hummingbird here in a minute because it's a Colorado story. Hiking the trail. I was in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So I'm trying
Yes.
to read these comments.
There's a few saying that you should write a book and eventually a movie will be made of your life. And I was like, yep, I could absolutely see that.
I'm writing 3 books right now. So I'm writing a memoir, and then I'm writing I love
Ooh.
sci-fi fantasy, and so I'm working on this sci-fi fantasy book forever. Like I really need to dig in and just do it, but it's one of those confidence
Yeah.
things. Like just
Just try.
you know,
Guys, just start.
so, but I'm writing. Yeah, I've always loved writing. I actually won the lieutenant governor's order for writing in 4th grade.
Ah,
Maybe it might have been later. I was a really, and I've got like published poems from growing up that I loved writing, and I was always writing and doodling. I love drawing too, and I still like painting, but art and writing
yes.
and music. So yeah, said I didn't throw up at the ale house. No, I didn't. No, it was just
Yeah,
my
yeah, it
nerves
wasn't
for the
from the
first
alcohol.
time.
Absolutely not. So,
The apple. So that pick in South Carolina. Yeah, that was 2021. That was recently.
oh,
That
that
was a
is
good
so.
time. Yeah. That's what I love about van life. We haven't even gotten to that. People who don't know me are like, she's all over the
Yes, yeah.
place.
So, could we get into that? How did you decide to convert this van into a mobile house?
So I was in Colorado for 4 years, and I did a few different odd jobs here and there, and then COVID hit, and I wasn't. So I was working at a CBD company and doing expos and stuff, and I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't play my music anymore. I wasn't doing gigs, so I moved back to South Carolina to my sister's house, and I stayed with her for about 3 or 4 months, and then I got a job and got my own place, and I just wasn't
Mhm.
happy. I felt really stuck, and I was like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. This isn't where I'm meant to be. And I'd always dreamed about
Mm,
RVing full time. Like I love traveling. Like, even when I got in the Marine Corps, it's kind of embedded in me
yeah.
because when we were growing up, we moved so much. Like we were everywhere. And I was just talking to my mom over Thanksgiving about. Um, we sat down. I'm squirreling, but we sat down over Thanksgiving, and I was like, let's just talk
Oh.
about good memories. We just
Mm-hmm.
brought up everything we loved, everything we remembered from our child. And I love talking to my mom and my aunt. She was there too. I love hearing about their lives and about their childhood and everything growing up. And so we challenge ourselves to just sit and talk about all the good memories because it's so easy to kind of
Absolutely.
harp on the
Yeah.
bad, you
Yeah. And
know?
it's easy to get in that complaining spiral or just like, I wish I would have done this. That is so cool.
Yeah. Because, the good memories, you just roll with them. They're, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. And then the bad memories, like, shit, like what did I do wrong, and because you want to fix it, you want to do better, you want to make it not happen again, and so you harp on the bad. So we challenged ourselves to sit on the good memories, and one of my good memories was when we were traveling in the station wagon. My mama used to make up beds. She would roll down the back seats. We didn't have our seatbelts on or anything. We were just blankets and pillows in the back seat, and the hum of the tires and the soft murmur of the
Yeah.
adults talking in the front seats. That's like my
Ah,
favorite
I
lullaby.
love that.
It's one of my favorite. And I think that's kind of what like got me stuck on the road. I just love traveling. I love driving. Anytime I'm driving, it's just like a
Mm-hmm.
instant calming feeling.
Right,
Unless you're
right.
in the
And that's a
city in
different
traffic, then
story.
that's just crazy.
So you were like,
But yeah,
I want to live. I don't, maybe a sense of like, I don't know where I belong, so let's just belong everywhere, sort of thing. And
exactly. I belong
yes,
everywhere and
yeah.
everywhere.
So,
Yeah. Veterans, where are you look out? So currently, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
so
I'm in a
how
parking
do
lot
you
in a hotel,
decide where you're
actually.
going to be next, or do you like? I know you plan a few things, or how do you decide? How do you plan your roadmap?
Yeah. So let's backtrack to the van life real quick, and then I'll tell you where I'm at. Um, I built out my van because I finally decided I wanted to travel full time. I traded in my Jeep for my van, and I went down to Alabama to my aunt's house. I just parked in her parking lot or in her driveway, And I used her garage, and we bought all these. My mom and my aunt were
Oh, that
so
is
supportive. I'm
awesome.
so thankful for them. They were there through all of it. They sewed my cushions. Look, let me see if I can show you all this. Nope, it's like Velcroed, but they
It's
sewed
a
all my
lot of
cushions
work.
and my butt. Yeah, my mom put in my swivel seat, and oh god, there's so many stories. They helped a lot, and there's literal blood, sweat, and tears in the build of this van. And I say that because I cried a lot, but my
Oh
mama
my
broke her shoulder and her
goodness.
wrist. So she put in the swivel seat, and the very next day it was raining, and I was over here putting in my tilting drawer, and my aunt was over there doing some kind of painting or something, and my mom went to come into the van to grab the seat, but it was higher than she remembered because she just put in the swivel seat the day before. She missed it. Her foot slipped out from under her because it had been raining, and she slammed right on the concrete, screaming. And I turned around. It was like slow motion. I was like, no. And I saw her fall. And she was like, I called the ambulance. The ambulance came. My mom was screaming. We couldn't move her. I'm just thankful she didn't crush her head. She had just had shoulder replacement
Mm,
like the year before. Like it had completely
right.
sheared off where her shoulder replacement was. And then she broke her
Wow.
wrist in two places. It was awful. But she looked at me and she was like, "You better live in that van
Right? You
forever."
got to make this worth it, Barbara.
Yeah. Oh, Cameron Grant. I
No
went to
way.
high
That
school
is
with
so
him. Hey, Cameron.
cool. Don't you love that
Yeah, that's
reconnecting
funny.
with people,
I
especially
haven't
because
talked.
you've been all over and people are shouting out you from like, oh, I saw you here, I met you here. So awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because like, I mean, high school. God, I'm not even the same person from high school, but it's just it's funny. It's also funny how people remember
Oh,
you versus how you think
absolutely.
they
Yes.
remember you.
Yeah, I just had my 10-year class reunion over the summer and it was just like, oh, I thought you hated me. And they're like, I never hated you. It was just I was just
Yeah. Girl, I was talking to guys I served in the Marine Corps with, and I was like, I felt like everybody hated me. And they're like, what are you talking about? We all
why?
loved you. And I'm like, really? You have a
Right?
fucked up
Like
way
I
of
thought I
showing
was
it,
just a
dude.
bitch all the time. What? Okay.
It's crazy. Our minds have a
Yeah,
weird way of
yes,
messing with us.
absolutely. So we are coming up on time. Uh, so I want
Oh,
to talk more about how you ended up where you are right now in Nashville and what's next for you.
yeah, sorry. So I ended up being in Nashville. Well, one because I play music, and I've been traveling the in the camper van for
Mhm.
19 months now, and I've done across country twice. I went up to Alaska for the summer. This past summer, I went up to Alaska and back, which was amazing. I could talk for another hour about it. Um, but I've just been driving and playing music and just pushing myself to get outside my comfort zone. And I always tell people like, they're like, aren't you lonely out there in your van? I'm like, no. When I was in my apartment, like it was so
Mhm.
easy to become a hermit and just not put myself out in the world. And part of van life, my goal was to be
Yeah.
more social. And so I'm pushing myself to be out there in the world. Um, I'm visiting friends and family that I haven't seen in forever. And so I'm out here, I'm in the world, I'm putting myself out there. It's uncomfortable, it's scary,
Growing.
but I'm growing so much and I'm loving it. And it's been amazing so far. And it's not all good, but you still learn from the bad. And if you let yourself, and I've just really loved it. And so um, but I want to dig in deeper with my music career, and I've been dancing around Nashville for a long time, just not really ready, and because I was still healing for a long time, and I didn't want to bring those broken parts of me to Nashville because I really wanted to dig in here. And I feel like I'm at a point where I can really dig in, and I've made some really cool connections, and I'm writing more, and I feel like more connected to myself and more connected to what I want to put out there. And that's what I'm hoping for, is that my music connects with people and that it helps people realize that they're not alone and that they can heal. And um, I don't know, I really want to put that kind of music out there that's connecting and healing. And I've really made some. This weekend was amazing. Like the song that I recorded this weekend is called "If You Need Somebody," and the whole point of it is because I never felt like I had anything to offer or that could be reliable. And now I do feel like, as imperfect and I don't always have the answers but I
Mhm.
still feel like I can be there for somebody. And that's what the song is about, is if you need somebody, especially, you know, because suicide is so high right now, not even just in the veteran community, but in general. Um, you got to have people that you can rely on. You can just reach out to at any time of day. And that's what that song's about. So
Yes,
I'm excited
yeah,
to get it out.
that's gonna resonate with so many people. Where can you stream your current music that you have out already? Okay, so
Spotify,
everywhere,
iTunes.
everywhere, you just type Barbara
Yeah,
Sim.
I think so. I do. I do. Yeah, Barbara
Okay.
Sim or Barbara
Oh,
Sim Music. Yeah, I'm on TikTok as Barbara Sim. I'm on Instagram as Barbara Sim Music, and Facebook as Barbara Sim
awesome.
Music. And it's SIM,
Right?
not SIN. Everybody keeps thinking
No.
it's Sin. I'm like, my last name's
That
not
might be like a
Sin,
fun
y'all.
twist, maybe in the future. I'm just kidding.
No.
Um, so Barbara, it's been great having you. I really enjoyed everyone on the live. Thank you for commenting and cheering Barbara on.
Yeah.
I love your story, and I think it's just so relatable to so many of us who have been through it, especially that tough year. I mean, you were battling several demons, and just I know there's a lot of people who are listening to this right now that are in that spot right now, and
We could go a lot deeper for a lot of
yes,
this.
yes,
Yeah.
and you know, look on the other side. There's such a good silver lining, and what you're doing, and you're on the other side of it, and just
Yeah.
helping others and inspiring others. It's incredible.
That's the important part, is there's another
Hmm.
side. Don't
Yes,
give up.
absolutely. Barbara, is there anything else
Yeah.
I can help you share tonight?
I think we
Yes,
covered most everything. Thank you for me. I was excited to meet you. Hopefully we'll get to meet in person. Are you going to the
is
Bureaustock
that in
anytime?
Arkansas?
You know,
Nebraska. I was
Nebraska.
close. I was close.
Yeah.
Oh, I was,
One of them
yeah,
states
how
out in
cool
the
would that be?
Midwest.
That would be really cool. And
You
that is
should
it
make
in
it out
June?
there. It's a really cool event. I think they're having several this year. I can
I can
talk to you
make it
about
happen.
details
I can make
later, but
it happen. Yeah,
yeah,
that
I'd
would
love to
be
meet you in
awesome.
person.
Well, great. Well, thank you everyone for
Yeah.
joining. And thank you if you're listening to the replay. And thank you, Barbara. It's been such a pleasure. All right, bye
Thank
everyone.
you.